like if you have sloppy execution, it's going to reflect. You're going to see it in game. You're gonna make input errors. Yo, what's good, people? Today I'm gonna be doing a different type of video. So today is gonna be kind of like a review, because I'm actually using the DualSense 5 controller. So yeah, and I know there's a lot of like reviews out there, but I just want to give my opinion on this controller and how it is for Raven in particular, because there are loads of guides, but there's no Raven specific guides out there. So I'm just gonna talk about how I feel about the out of box experience, how I think it's gonna break in, because the problem with the DualShock 4 is that it had a problem where like each controller broke in differently, if that kind of makes sense. Like as you can see, like it's got a D-pad, but it has rubber underneath, and it kind of broke in differently, so it's weird. So I'm just gonna share my thoughts and opinions on this controller. Alright guys, so I actually got this controller yesterday, but I just want to give my opinion. So actually, let's turn count it off. Alright, so general thoughts. I feel like the controller itself, let me get my DualShock 4 so I can like kind of compare the size, and but I feel like the DualShock 5 or DualSense 5 is a bit more bulky, you know. It is a bit more bulky, so we're gonna compare the sizes. So look, here's the DualShock 4, right? And here's the DualSense 5. So you can already see that DualSense 5 is more bulky, but it's not a bad thing. It's good. Like it feels weight in the hand, you know, it's good. I think the D-pad is about the same size. Like the actual D-pad itself is the same size, but the four face buttons are slightly more spread out. So it does kind of take a bit of getting used to, but it's not a bad thing at all. It's actually quite good. And out of the box, it doesn't feel as stiff as the DualShock 4 D-pad. It feels a bit more loose, but it's still stiff. But it's an easier experience to handle, especially because Raven has like crouch dash, and you know, like on a new controller, I can't do this very well, but I'm still having trouble with it, but not as much trouble with the DualSense 5. So her crouch dash cancel, I can still do it very well on DualSense 5. It's new, I got it yesterday, so you know, it's still a new controller, right? And I think it's more accurate. Like the D-pad is more accurate. So when you're doing stuff like QCF, you never, like, unless you specifically want a down forward input with no forward, you're not gonna get forward by accident. It's really accurate. So I feel like I've heard like people complaining that, you know, they're having input issues or execution issues, but I just think it's because their inputs are lazy. And I feel like the DualShock 4 allows for lazy inputs, and it kind of compensates because it's so like the D-pad is so mushy. But I feel like it's good as well, because if your inputs are clean and crisp, you're not gonna get input errors. Because I feel like on DualShock 4, the inputs, like even backdashing is weird, or you know, you're gonna get caught in backdashing. On DualSense 5, if your inputs are clean and crisp, you're not gonna get stuff like that, I don't feel like. And at the moment it's quite stiff, but I feel like my movement is fine. Like my crouch dashing is fine, you know. Out of the box, Raven feels very smooth. She feels very good on this controller, very responsive. That's one thing I'd say, is more responsive than DualShock 4. So it's a nice controller, I think. And obviously this is a Raven specific video, but I feel like I've talked about everything I need for Raven anyway, because there's not really much to Raven's execution apart from like her movement. I feel like her movement is where the execution comes in. So, you know, you got stuff like this. You know, you're not going to get input errors unless you are making the input errors. She's very responsive. But in terms of like real execution, okay, so as I was saying, like in terms of real execution, you've got the character like Nina where, I mean, her butterfly cancels or while standing one loops are not really necessary, but like it's a good thing to have. So I'm gonna try see if I can do. So you can see straight away I didn't make any input errors. That is crazy. So I'm gonna try the other side now. This proves my point. Nina's while standing one loops are not easy to do at all, and you can see the inputs are nice, and accurate. I didn't do, you know, this method. I just did QCF, you know. This controller is very accurate. It's very responsive to your inputs. Like it accurately reflects. You like when you have a clothing brand, or you have like a brand that does shoes, right? And it's like, oh, does this fit to size? This is the same thing. Like, this is, if you can transfer that concept over to controllers, this is the same thing. Like, what you're inputting on the controller is reflected in game. Like, if you have sloppy execution, it's going to reflect. You're going to see it in game. You're gonna make input errors. If that make, like, do you know what I mean? But you will make input errors if your execution is sloppy. So I feel like players that complain about, you know, having input errors, or I just feel like it's just that execution not being up to scratch on that particular day, right? So I feel like, yeah, it does get some taking used to, because I'm still not used to the controller yet. You know, my movement still is a bit off. And it's also because it's new as well. So obviously the D-pad is stiff, very stiff. So it's going to be difficult to move, right? But it's not as stiff as a new DualShock 4. So I'm really enjoying this controller, really liking it. The bulkiness is nice, you know, it's nice in the hand. The triggers are better, the bumpers and stuff are more responsive as well. I think that the biggest thing for me was that the face buttons were a bit more spaced apart. So pressing like 4-1 for Raven was a bit weird at first, because the button placement is a bit different. But going from DualSense 5 to DualShock 4 is not good, because it feels like this is just nice and responsive, and then you go to this and it's just like it's not that responsive, you know. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you with Raven and a bit of execution you don't need as well as only one loops. Just as an example, there's loads of execution in this game, but if your execution is nice, yeah, this controller is good.